order. And if I could first ask our interpreters to explain how interpretation should be accessed.
Announcement from interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll start this meeting with a tribal acknowledgement. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups: the Kumeyaay, the Igueño, Luiseño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, if you would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Francesca, can you please confirm quorum?
Thank you, Vice Chair. We do have a quorum this morning with 5 of 6 jurisdictions present, with only the County of San Diego absent.
All right, thank you. Let's get started with the non-agenda public comment, please.
Thank you. Before we proceed to non-agenda public comment, I'd like to remind everyone in the room today that this meeting will be conducted in an orderly manner to ensure that the public has an opportunity to be heard and that the members' discussions and deliberations are not disrupted. We do want to hear from every person who has comments on the subjects of today's meeting, but I'll insist that comments remain on topic. No comments shall use loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. Language or any other disorderly conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the committee meeting is prohibited. Based on those factors, the chair has determined that for today's meeting, the public will be allowed 1 minute for their comments. And also a reminder that we're not using voting pads for the executive committee, so please go ahead and raise your hand if and when you'd like to speak. With that, we'll go ahead and start with Michael Brando, and after Michael will be Truth.
People dropping dead in the streets. The vaccine solves it all. Bodies piling up. It came from a bat. PCR tests are accurate. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Hospitals are at full capacity. Social distancing is effective. Lockdowns are effective. There will be no mask mandate. There will be no vaccine mandate. There will be no vaccine passports. Kids won't be jabbed, only the elderly and vulnerable. There will be never an injection requirement for jobs. PCR tests are accurate. This is from a book called Discerning Deception. It's an essay, a book of essays, which is actually excellent. Why do I bring all that up? Because society at large has not dealt with the trauma that has happened over the last 5 years, and the problems continue. Some people have false hope that President Trump will solve all this. No, he was part and parcel to all of these delusions just as much as Biden was. And the good news is we have an opportunity to course correct, including this board. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Truth, and Truth will be followed by Mark.
Hey there. First, a shout out to all the SANDAG workers because I know y'all are watching. Everybody knows me. Someone called me a public speaking champion. Yes, I have verbally knocked out many opponents at meetings, but what makes a champion? Fighting with integrity. So to regard Nora there, I confirm that the settlement in National City was a different Nora Vargas. There is a Nora J. Vargas and a Nora E. Vargas. Kind of scary. There's two Vargases going on. But one other correction, I made a mistake in a speech about the pledge. I meant to rhetorically ask why SANDAG is non-committal to patriotism. And my solution for both inland and coastal North County remains trolleys. They're much cheaper, easier, and efficient than the coaster. Yes, trolleys currently come with crime, but maybe more cities will then admit and understand the need for more investment and security. Trolleys North County could even be a joint venture between NCTD and MTS that could financially benefit both agencies. If the military or corporations need a railroad, they should figure out their own problem, because SANDAG is allegedly a transportation agency, not a binational trade agency, and that's going to come up more. And my next non-agenda is going to address it too. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Mark, and after Mark, we'll go to Zoom with the person with the phone number ending in 415.
Mark, it's important to realize where your organization is really headed. And it's easy to see that with what Newsom is doing. He doesn't care about the country. He doesn't care about migrants taking over buildings, police being beaten and shot, people being raped and trafficked, women being killed. None of that really seems to matter to him. He's doing a UN agenda, and you guys need to see it's hard for you to picture, I think, because SANDAG moves so slow and so corporately. But in the end, they're headed for what Canada and Europe are having, and even more so. No guns that would do any good in any kind of real invasion, or as the Second Amendment implies, if the government were to be completely totalitarian, no guns that could do anything to stop them. AI controlled railways, where with a metal detector and AI saying the protest is happening here, it would just shut down those lines that day. That's where you're headed. You better watch out.
Your time has expired. Our next speaker will be the person with the phone number ending in 415, followed by Blair Beekman.
Hi, Paul Bold. Happy holidays. Maybe with only 5 agenda items, none of which look particularly complex, maybe we can get our 3-minute speaking time back. Don't count on it. The coming meeting should be interesting. It is said, but with all extra dissembling and bureaucratic explanations you'll make for the investigative report and metallurgy failure, key resignations, and failed or delayed objectives, number 9 might need an unusual amount of time. There should probably be a warning that the December 13th meeting will be extra long, so bring your warm coats and sweaters. But there will be things to celebrate. So bring in that leftover wild turkey. Comes in a bottle these days, by the way. And maybe put an extra table in the middle of the floor for cakes and goodies. And on number 10, maybe there should be something about extra compensation for investors.
Thank you. Your time has expired. It looks like Blair put his hand down, so we'll move on to the original draw next. You can go ahead.
How great is it that Trump is going to be the president, right? But you guys are super pissed off, which is funny because with all the aiding and abetting that's been going on in San Diego County as a sanctuary, right? And the plans to continue, it'll be interesting to see which one of you guys gets, thrown in jail or whatever from Tom Homan, because that is no longer going to be what's going on. So if you guys sit there and waste our money to try and fight that and put people in more and more danger after we've already had a little 5-year-old girl been raped, right? Nobody cares about that, right? Because it's not you guys. But it's interesting to see what the future holds because all the things that you guys have been engaging in with that is going to be put to an end. And again, if you try and waste the people's money to fight it, you're going to have big problems in this county. So it's pretty exciting to see what's going on because no longer can you guys just, you know, arbitrarily decide to destroy our county.
That concludes the public comments on this item.
All right, thank you so much. Do we have any non-agenda member comments? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I noticed at the last board meeting that the topic of an update to Board Policy 004 was addressed. And while I realize that I am not as charismatic as my neighbor, Mayor Jones, and perhaps not as persistent either, I'm disappointed that she was able to propose, deliberate, and have a board policy modification adopted all during the period we've been waiting on updates to other board policies, such as updates to 039 as proposed by the Audit Committee about 2 years ago at this point. The modifications were last discussed this past May, and along with others that were deferred have been waiting to be heard since then. Ironically, some of the deferred modifications that were discussed last May were on the same board policy on our last agenda, dealing with topics such as ethics and reporting requirements for board members, which to me are arguably more important than desired ceremonial meeting requirement. To be clear, I don't object to the policy changes we just adopted. I just ask for more consideration in the future about how, when, and the order these policy updates get addressed, in particular when there is clearly no urgency about the topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional non-agenda member comments? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Mario, do you have any updates to the draft agenda?
Yeah, we will be having a couple of changes. We're adding to the 213 board agenda the back office systems budget amendment. This was discussed with the board. It has been negotiated. So now that we have the order of magnitude, we'll bring it to the board. We're also moving to the 1213 the Washington Street Bikeway budget amendment and award. We had a bidders protest on this project, and therefore we need to resolve that and move it to the 1213.
Got it. Thank you so much. Mayor Jones?
Thank you so much, Chair. I did have a question on now that you brought up the Washington Bikeway budget. I have had numerous actual cyclists that are professional cyclists that don't ride their bike to work, but actually go in groups oftentimes. And I guess they keep bringing up to me time and time again, we don't like the curb stops, the curbs that are in the bikeways. So I'm just wondering if we have considered not pushing those moving forward. And they also have told me that the candlesticks are also very dangerous, and oftentimes they, if they bump them, it's like a whole bunch of people actually crash. So moving forward on any bike lanes that we put in, I would really like for us to actually have a discussion about this and make sure that we are putting in safe technology that is not going to cause accidents. And we're actually getting feedback from the folks that are using them, because we do want them to use them. But I actually, I just had this conversation again this week, which I have it pretty often actually. But someone told me that I will absolutely never use it as long as it has a curb stop and the candlesticks, because it's too dangerous. And so they end up using the lanes. And if we're going to do that, we might as well just have sharrows, because we can actually use those and put those in more oftentimes. And they're, we already have the lanes there. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
All right. Do we have public comment on the consent agenda?
We do. Thank you, Vice Chair. First, we'll go to Truth, and Truth will be followed by Mark. And as a reminder, if you could please state which item you're speaking on.
The minutes say that.
What's his name? Sean Elo Rivera.
Was here. The minutes do not distinguish whether or not he was chit-chatting while people spoke. It's called an omission. Speaking of what's his name, I'd like to continue to beat the drum about the vaguity of the minutes. I want the record of the minutes to say that I missed the clerk of the minutes, Tessa. She was a tough one, but I did make her laugh. And I meant to say that Melanie is an alternate and doesn't have to be here, but always is. She might be not just in the Broken Record Club, but also the No Life Club. Good company, though, over there, right there. That's Rebecca. Item 3, hopefully regional safety planning is going to address fire evacuation routes and not dorky, unsafe bike lanes. And I'm very much looking forward to discussing MIA Mario missing posters required for the CEO during his own pet pollution project, the OME toll. Also, I was nor so insistent on a Friday the 13th meeting. That's interesting, and apparently it's going to be a really long one. That almost makes me want to call her fat, PHAT, because wow, she's just got some guts to just risk that. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Mark, and after Mark, we will go to the original draw on Zoom.
Mark, 3, about your draft agenda, which is all Agenda 21. And I've said that so many times. I don't know if you guys have ever looked up any of the videos I cite. You should go to YouTube. You should look at Rosa Corey's video. Rosa Corey Part 1 will bring it up. The real title says Behind the Green Mask, etc. There's Part 1 through 4. I highly recommend you see Parts 1 and 2, at least Part 1. Corey is spelled Koire. Also, I don't think any of you realize why the whole country is doing UN agendas. You need to see Bill Cooper's video on YouTube. It's called Bill Cooper, Behold That Pale Horse, Chapter 13. That's a very interesting chapter because it details how we illegitimately signed the treaty with the UN, the United Nations Treaty, in 1945, I believe, and that it's completely unconstitutional, especially the end of the video. We'll talk about that. It doesn't matter whether they did it or not. They don't have the authority to do something against the Constitution.
Your time has expired. Our next speaker will be the original draw. You can go ahead.
Amen, Mark. So true. Everything you guys are doing, this has to do with number 3. It has to do with the United Nations, even the invasion on our border through the Global Compact for Migration. And so as things are going to be changing in the near future, you guys should really think about whether or not you want to continue down the path of going and being in bed with the United Nations, which is set out to destroy the nation. Oh, but you guys don't care, right? Because you're puppets. And all you do is you're puppeted around to be pushing agendas that, again, like Mark was saying, are totally unconstitutional. And then you sit there and you pretend to take an oath to the Constitution, but you're really doing it to the corporation. Then you sit up there and, pledge allegiance to a flag, talking about a republic when you guys are sitting there doing stuff for a democracy. So I think you guys need to get your things straight in your head, because the United Nations is going to be something that we're not going to be following anymore. So you need to be bringing items that have to do with that and not ones that have to do with destroying the nation.
That concludes the public speakers.
All right, thank you. Do we have any, before we go to member discussion, Mario, you have another update?
Yeah, I apologize to the committee. I did have another possible add-on on the next board meeting. It's not, we still don't know, but it's based on how we do with the negotiations with the federal government on Alta Mesa East. We may bring the agreement forward. Again, it's ambitious, but both the federal government has also as a target to sign the agreement or to reach consensus by the end of the year.
Thank you, Mario. All right, then with that, we will open it up for member discussion and the potential motion to approve the consent agenda. Mayor Huebner?
I'll move approval of consent with the additions and changes noted by Mario.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second?
Second.
We got a second from Mayor Vasquez. Thank you very much. We've got a motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments, or any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you so much. With that, let's move to item number 4, our legislative status report, and we will hand it over to our presenters. Robin, take it away.
Hector's actually going to get us started today. I'm pinch hitting for our ledge team who happen to all be out of the office for various reasons today. So good to see you from this side of the table again.
Good morning, members of this committee. My name is Hector Vanegas, and I'm the Borders Program Manager in the Office of Government Relations here. Lots of things to report today about the border, but I will be very brief. South of the border, Mexico is starting to implement some of the constitutional reforms that I referred last month. And let's remember
Hector,
that
do you
one.
mind speaking just a little closer to the mic?
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. And do you want me to repeat? Okay, so lots of things are happening south of the border, and I will be brief in my report. And I was just reminding you that Mexico made several constitutional reforms that are of our interest. And one is the right now elevated to constitutional level of to have a decent housing, and that is one of the first actions that the government is taking is to freeze 3 million mortgage loans as a first step, and this strategy will be escalating to cover other groups of mortgage loans. The objective is to build 50,000 new homes in 2025 and to have at least 100,000 improvements. Also, it was approved that the energy policy should prioritize state production and supply for domestic consumption before exporting. And the goal is that the price of energy will maintain the same cost in real terms over the next 6 years. And why this is important is because, as we know, thousands of San Diegans seek access to an affordable housing and lifestyle in Mexico, representing the vast majority of people that we see crossing the border, returning to San Diego every day. In addition to the production lines that are shared and allow jobs and to be maintained on both sides of the border. Related to this topic, we are also monitoring the issues related to the upcoming review of the USMCA Free Trade Agreement, which surely will have impact to our economy and regional economy. The new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, has already had 2 telephone calls with President-elect Donald Trump. Now, on other topics, I would like to offer a brief update on the issue of cross-border sewage. In addition to the announcement, you have already heard of the awarding of contracts for the repairs of the International Wastewater Treatment Plant. Mexico's section of the International Boundary and Water Commission, or better known as IBWC, confirmed that the repairs to the San Antonio Los Buenos plant has been completed, although the hydromechanical equipment is still being installed. And I was told that everything is covered and secure, but the date to begin discharging water with the required standard was pushed back to March of next year. In addition to the work of the San Antonio de los Buenos plant, the announcement made of the awarding of the contract to carry out the repairs of the pumping station 1 or PB1 is also important. In this way, Mexico will stop discharging raw waters into the sea and will be able to better manage the water that is being sent to the international plant. A third aspect is the challenge of controlling the wastewater that runs through the Tijuana River. In this regard, Mexico, along with the North American Development Bank, is also about to conclude a study on contribution to the Tijuana River that will help to identify collapsed areas and formulas to reduce the flow of fugitive waters into the Tijuana River. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has reiterated her commitment to finish all these works, strengthening coordination with the state and authorities in Baja California. On another water issue, but different, but also very important for our region, Mexico announced its new national water or hydraulic plan, which sets to construct the construction of the Rosarito desalination plant as a priority. This is important because, as we know, the water from our shared source, the Colorado River, is dramatically decreasing, and this will represent an additional source of water for consumption. We understand the state of Baja California has already secured the land required and cleared the legal path for its construction, and I hope to have more updates in the future. And before I conclude, let me just mention that early this week, Caltrans District 11 hosted the meeting of the U.S.-Mexico Transportation Joint Working Committee, or JWC, which brings all the agencies addressing border transportation issues, including the federal authorities and the 6 Mexican and 4 American states. Our CEO, Mario, also had a chance to brief the group on our various projects addressing mobility in our region, and in particular, our flagship project, Otay Mesa East. And with this, I conclude my report and will pass the microphone to my colleague, Robin.
Thanks, Hector. I'll just pick it up right there. Also this week, Mario was able to join actually Governor Newsom, GoBiz CEO Dee Myers, State Senator Steve Padilla, the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, and other regional leaders in a roundtable yesterday to discuss binational commerce and the role that the future Otay Mesa East port of entry may be able to play in improving goods movement and the crossing of people as well across the border. Speaking of State Senator Padilla, you may have seen some headlines earlier this week as well. On the first day of the California State Legislative Session, he introduced SB 10, which would allow for the use of revenues from the future port of entry to be used to fund environmental mitigation efforts in the Tijuana River Valley. We're currently reviewing the bills to make sure we understand all of the details and what this may mean for the project, and we'll be bringing a more detailed update to you at your next executive committee meeting in the new year. Speaking of the new session, there's a lot of change in Sacramento. Almost a quarter of the legislature, including the state and the assembly, is new members, which for SANDAG means we have a lot of education to do. Within our own San Diego delegation, we actually have 4 new members. That is 3 new members to the state assembly, Assembly members DeMaio, Assembly member Patel, and Assembly member Sharp Collins. And then our former Assembly member Weber has now assumed a state Senate role, replacing Tony Atkins in the state Senate. So we'll be reaching out to all of our new members as well as our existing members to make sure they know what's going on at SANDAG and are aware of what our legislative priorities will be in the new year. On the federal side, Congress is back to work in Washington, D.C., currently working on the next stopgap measure to ensure that we have funding past December 20th. The president-elect is also working to put together his incoming cabinet. And so we've heard that he has announced former Congressman Sean Duffy to be the next Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation. This vote is subject to Senate confirmation, so we'll let you know as soon as that has been finalized. And also talking about Otay Mesa East again, on November 19th, we were proud to host U.S. Ambassador to Mexico, Ken Salazar, as well, to talk about the project, make sure he knows all the latest and greatest about what's going on. And he conveyed to us about some of the highest level conversations that are happening in D.C. to make sure that we continue moving forward on some of those agreements that we've been talking about. Lastly, we wanted to bring to your attention a bill that was introduced by U.S. Senator Alex Padilla and Congressman Juan Vargas and Congressman Scott Peters, the Border Water Quality Restoration and Protection Act of 2024. This bill would appoint the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency as a lead agency to coordinate efforts to address water infrastructure and pollution issues in the Tijuana River and New River watershed. It also would require the EPA to implement a comprehensive water quality management program and codifies the U.S.-Mexico border water infrastructure program, which is important because that's what would help to fund water infrastructure projects benefiting U.S. communities. This bill has a lot of synergy with the work that SANDAG is currently doing to help put together an inventory and identify priority projects along the border to help with these issues, and it is consistent with our legislative program goal number 17. There's currently no opposition to this bill. We understand that the city of Coronado, San Diego County, and Imperial County have taken positions of support already. And today we're asking the Executive Committee to approve a support position for the Border Water Quality Restoration and Protection Act of 2024. That concludes our report, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you so much. Do we have public comment?
Thank you, we do. First will be Truth. Truth will be followed by Mark.
I'm going to be honest with you, all of that actually felt like hearing pollution. HR 9640, pollution from Mexico jeopardizes the health of Border Patrol agents. SB 507, 25 million gallons of sewage from Tijuana per day. The sewer system of Tijuana is insufficient to meet the needs of a quickly growing population, and more sewage on thanks to SANDAG's OME toll. Newscom's rig game means the city of San Diego, the port, or the Lyon County could rep IB or Coronado. Add to that 2 reps from NADBank who are going to bank off the OME toll. What a conflict of interest. Why did Padilla and Juan make 0 progress on the sewage crisis until right before election season? And why was Padilla, who's introducing a bill to make the Path for Mitigation Fund, why was he seen at Newscom's press conference where he continued to refuse to declare a state of emergency? And the EPA don't need to be transferred authority. They've always had it and refused to do anything. The USMCA needs to be dismantled, and the #1 polluter needs to be held accountable, Mario. We only have treatment plants because Mexico is allowed to dump their toilet water into our country. It's environmental terrorism, and you're enabling it. It needs to stop.
Our next speaker will be Mark, followed by the person with the phone number ending in 415.
Mark, we all know that you guys are going to do the very least you possibly can to make it better enough for everyone to stop complaining, and then it's going to just get worse again, and probably worse than it's ever been. And it's going to keep getting worse because neither government cares about its people, especially near the border, where the people are relatively poor, like Tijuana and San Ysidro. The government just doesn't care. Also, I'd like to mention that when I was referring to the Second Amendment and such, I'm not actually for violence, although I absolutely am for our Second Amendment rights. It won't solve anything. The government would just kill everyone if they tried to revolt. I'm for raising people's consciousness so that the government is simply unable to rule people the way they do. They just wouldn't accept it. In fact, the way America began, we simply stopped paying taxes to the British when we felt we weren't represented and started our own government with our own currency. It was a pretty good idea until now. This is how it turned out, so corrupt.
Thank you. Your time has expired. We'll go to the person with the phone number ending in 415, followed by the original draw.
Hi, you have a kind of bad memory. I'm Paul Bold, I told you. A comprehensive water infrastructure plan is great, but the two watersheds are very different. I'm sorry to hear that the New River watershed issues are still there, but it's a separate problem. It's an old channel from the Colorado River to the Salton Sea, which floods periodically and fills with sewage. It's a U.S. problem. So if we take both watersheds on, we might end up being in a competitive situation. The issues are different. Ours is an international problem. A comprehensive solution needs to include Mexico. I disapprove of the U.S. Senate bill as presently written. The TJ River Valley sewage problem has affected the health and quality of life for thousands for 30 years. We need action now, if not yesterday. There are good things being done now. Fairly.
Your time has expired. The original draw, you can go ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that you care more about a relationship with Mexico than the people in your own community. You're willing to sacrifice their health just to, be in bed with Mexico, which is totally treason. And, you should be really caring about the people here over the people in Mexico. But it's sad to see that so many people are having to leave the United States and go into Mexico. And you care more about providing them homes than you do providing the people here in San Diego homes, because there's a lot of people that need a home, and you care more about putting them in Tijuana than you do bringing them here. And so if you wonder why people leave, it's because you guys don't give two shits about them, and you're willing to literally put them in harm's way. And we're going to test and see if this is actually harming them. We're going to allow them to just live in this sewage. Maybe the sewage needs to be put in your home, and so that you're just stewing in it, because you guys don't care to do enough to make sure that the people are healthy and safe.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our final speaker will be the person with the phone number ending in 813. You can go ahead.
Hi, Consuelo here. So ditto to everything the previous speakers just talked about. And yeah, especially Mark and Truth. And yeah, let's definitely raise that consciousness. Here we go. So let's focus. Regarding our water being poisoned for years, let's face it, they've neglected this issue for years, and it's all on purpose. We have to recognize this. At this point, what we've been saying for years regarding the UN Agenda 21, there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. Please do yourselves a favor. really look into what's going on and why things are being done and why things have been neglected. All on purpose, you guys, all of it. Wake up. Happy Friday.
That concludes the public comments on this item.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll now begin the committee discussion of the item. We'll begin with Councilmember Duncan.
Thank you. I have a couple questions and clarifications. The first one in regard to the Border Water Quality Restoration and Protection Act. Do you have any update for us on sort of where that is legislatively in Congress?
So the session ends at the end of the year. It's unlikely that the bill is going to be passed by then, but I think what the members who introduced it said is now's the time to make the statement, and then they fully plan to reintroduce it in the beginning of the year as well.
Yeah, that is my understanding. It's definitely not going to pass this year, but I'm supportive of SANDAG supporting it for the next congressional session. I just would note one other thing that's I don't see in the report is that one of the main purposes of it is it funds the EPA supervisory role at a $50 million per year level for 10 years. So it really is an additional $500 million if it passes for this obviously environmental disaster and serious issue. I have a couple of questions for Mr. Venegas. If I heard you properly, I believe you said that there's a new priority for a desalination plant. I didn't hear where that is located in Mexico.
It's not a new priority, and this is a different matter from the cross-border sewage. So the state of Baja California rely mostly on the coastal western side from water from the Colorado River. And as we know, the Colorado River is now having different share between the upper and the lower and Mexico basins. So they are getting a very limited water now. The first step they are doing is to efficientize the use of water in the agricultural fields, but they still need more water for the city coastals and the coastal cities in the area of Tijuana. So they are planning to build a desalination plant in this jurisdiction of Rosarito.
I'm not sure exactly where that is. Where is Rosarito? Can you let me know?
Rosarito is about 6 miles south of Tijuana in the coast.
Understood. So that is, and so I understood the first part of your comments previously. So I just wanted to verify that's where that is, because that is not too far from where the discharge of the pollution is occurring in San Antonio de los Buenos. But regardless, my comment, and maybe SANDAG at a future time can support something different, which this desalination plant's a major concern for the communities of Imperial Beach and Coronado and the San Diego region, because what does it do? Obviously, desalination drastically increases the water supply. And how does Tijuana grow? It's with water. So the real question is, when you put water into the system, what comes out of Tijuana when you put water into the system? Mass quantities of raw sewage, which gets dumped down the hill into the United States, into the communities where Mr. McKay and I and our families live. So we were hoping was going to happen, and I understood it was under consideration, was a pure water facility, which is similar to what the city of San Diego is nearing major steps on completion right now. And that would thus use the sewage to create the water, as opposed to just creating a bunch more water from the ocean and then dumping a bunch more sewage into southern San Diego. So maybe that's something that SANDAG could take a look at down the road, of issuing a potential letter of support for a pure water plant, which would actually treat some of the sewage. On the next quick question I have for you is, I believe I heard you mention that the Mexico plant, they're now stating, is going to come online at the end of March.
That's what I was told. The civil engineering construction is completed. Now they are just putting the hydromechanic equipment, which are pumps and boards, switch and this and that. They told me everything is secure. It's just that they are needing more time to do the test and trial. And the commitment day is now by the end of March.
Yeah, I hope that's accurate. I was down there at that plant, I think in August, and the commitment was that it would definitely be turned on October 1st. And I understand that this spring date has been floating around for many months now, but I wish there was more specificity as to what they were actually doing, where they were on the timeline, and when the timeline was going to be completed, as opposed to just sort of a general comment, which previously the general comment they were going to start treating it in September or the end of September, October 1st didn't happen because that plant's been down for about 15 years. As to the follow-up on that question, which I believe I heard you say something, that this plant will stop the discharge of raw sewage directly into the ocean.
Yes, once it is completed, because it was dumping water into the ocean without treatment.
Yeah, so I think that's either inaccurate or partially inaccurate, because the amount of the millions of gallons per day that are being dumped daily now, the plant after repair and once it starts running, assuming it does, will not treat the full amount of sewage. Its capacity is not at the level it will do so. So there will still be millions of gallons per day dumped into the ocean, but it'll certainly be an improvement. And what we're hoping is it doesn't close our beaches during the summer from the currents that bring that up to our beaches now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Duncan. All right. Thank you. We'll go to Councilmember Molina and then to Mayor Jones.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. I'm curious about the action before us, Border Water Quality Restoration and Protection Act of 2024. The fact that a large portion of this is for the purposes of funding the EPA for this project. What gives me pause is the Trump administration in his first term decimated the EPA. And so I wonder, do we have any information about whether the EPA is going to survive? I know we don't have a crystal ball before us and we cannot predict the future, but we can look at the actions of the past and see if they're do we have indication of anything related to the EPA and the function that it will have in the next 4 years?
I don't personally have any information regarding that.
Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I'm in support of this. We definitely have to do something. I guess my question is, and I know we already had a resolution, we already sent it to the governor, in my opinion, or in my recollection. Can we send another letter to say, hey, this would be helpful to bolster what we're trying to do right now? Because our neighbors to the south are literally needing our support. And I think we should do literally everything that we can do to say we need our governor on board, because this is over the top. I mean, every time I hear about how much sewage is going right into the ocean, I just don't know how anybody cannot be very upset about this. So in my opinion, we should maybe say, hey, we're taking this action and we really need your support on this. I don't know. I just feel like everything that we could possibly do would be very helpful.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I would, first of all, thank my fellow participating cities in their support for this. The City of Imperial Beach does support it. However, I think SB 507 doesn't go far enough, and that it doesn't include at this point, even though it claims to be a comprehensive solution, it doesn't contain any wastewater reclamation components. And I think to Mayor-elect Duncan's comments, it's great that they're creating some water independence from the Colorado River source. However, as he mentioned, that just adds to the burden of effluent coming north. It's nice to see that the 18 million gallon treatment plant there at Los Baños is coming online. We know from anecdotal data that Tijuana produces between 75 and 90 million gallons a day of sewage. Our own treatment plant has a capacity of 25 million until such time that it's expanded to 50 or 60 million. Plus 18, there's still a shortfall. There's still, water, sewage, let's call it what it is, going into the ocean or into the river and coming north. That's bypassing the treatment plant. So my community Coronado, Nestor, San Ysidro, even Chula Vista are suffering the effects of this constant, on one hand, there's progress, but on the other hand, you're adding to the problem. So again, the City of Imperial Beach supports the Border Water Quality Restoration and Protection Act. However, I think there's a little bit of protection missing there. And I would suggest that, you know, if not included in our letter of support, we certainly are cognitive and aware that there is a need for wastewater reclamation. Pure Water North County was mentioned. You know, it's not online yet, but I think it's you know, a lot of lessons learned there. There's some cost savings to be had, and possibly we could use that model in the border region. So I appreciate the time, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right, we'll go now to Mayor Huebner.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we do support staff's recommendation and add to that any further actions that we can take in terms of letters to our governor, or it is a little frustrating to hear that we've got a new plant coming on that's actually not going to treat the whole problem, only part of the problem, which basically doesn't treat the problem. So if we could, you know, push wherever we can in terms of speaking with our legislators, encouraging them to maybe see a different angle on their so-called solution to these problems that really are, I mean, I can't even fathom what these communities are going through. So I'll make a motion to that effect. And if there's anything that you want to add, Mario or staff, in terms of what, you know, cautions to that direction, or
no, we continue to push the envelope on the subject.
Okay, great. So
I will offer a second to your motion. We have a motion and a second. Are there any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Shu?
Sure. I can't vote on it since I'm not an official voting member of the executive committee, but I would like to make an broader comment, taking a step back from the overall issue. I mean, it's absolutely wrong for any society or governing group or organization, city, to put raw sewage into its neighbor's ecosystem. And we have had that going on for a long time. But it's always dangerous to point to others because, you know, you have three fingers pointing back. So let's remember that the city in our region put raw sewage into the ocean for decades against our own rules with regards to clean water. Let's remember the rivers that flow into Mexico from the United States have been robbed of its fresh water, again, for hundreds of years. And in fact, to the point in which the Sea of Cortez has real salinity problems. So I think we need to step back and think, how can we improve our entire ecosystem, and think of that as we go forward. Because it should be a lesson to us as well as to everyone else as we point the finger at Mexico and try to get them to correct this issue. But we should work as a region and not see this border as a hard line. I've always advocated that it's a soft line. It's an international border, but certainly for the environment, it is not a hard line. And we suffer from it when we draw that hard line. I really want to also reiterate my Mayor-elect Duncan and his point about, let's look at other solutions, which we're actually learning about, which is a pure water system. So we don't have to transport so much water, which we can't clean our water even well enough that you could drink the water. So we can treat our resources in that way, as opposed to desalination. We can help Mexico and our region if we look at what is the state of the art in living responsibly and sustainably. So I think that's something that we can do as a body, just with this kind of knowledge and oversight. I certainly encourage that you pass this motion because we want to keep pushing. And perhaps the new incoming administration will see the validity and need to keep EPA going and to help us here in San Diego with this particular allocation of funding to keep EPA going. EPA has pluses and minuses, but they can't do any pluses if they don't have any money and allocation from the federal government. So let's support this motion so that our region can can see this river valley as any other river valley in our coastline. Just because it borders Mexico, we should not have a vision, just like we have a vision for any other wild river along the California coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shu. All right, Mayor Huebner made a motion. I provided a second. Don't see any additional requests to speak to the item. We will, can we do we can't do a tally vote on the screen, correct?
No, we can't.
Okay, so would a roll call?
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor Jones.
Jones, yes.
For North County Coastal, Second Vice Chair Huebner.
Yes.
For South County, Councilmember Molina.
Yes.
For East County, Mayor Vasquez.
Yes.
For the City of San Diego, Vice Chair Ela Rivera.
Yes.
And the County of San Diego is absent, so that does pass unanimously.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we do not have any trailed non-agenda public comment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, well then with that, our meeting is concluded. The next executive committee meeting will be on January 10th at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.